Hey everyone, and welcome to the Mark Prater podcast, where our aim is to connect our global family of Sovereign Grace churches with our executive director. Mark, next
Ben,
week, you
yes.
are actually the week that this episode drops, because it drops on the Monday of each week typically. But next week, you are headed to the Executive Committee Retreat, which is a yearly event for you and the Executive Committee. But we realize that there could be newer folks checking out the podcast who aren't really familiar with the executive committee and who's on the committee. So remind us, what is the executive committee and who is on the executive committee?
Yeah, the executive committee is really a function of our polity.
Hmm.
So when we ratified our Book of Church Order way back in 2013, now way back in
Yeah,
2013,
12 years.
we really became a polity that is elder led. And what I mean by that is the leadership team that I have the privilege of leading exists to serve our pastors and churches. And in the work that we do, we're accountable to the Council of Elders, and the Council of Elders has tasked the executive committee for that responsibility of oversight and accountability and evaluation of the leadership team. And in addition to that, they are responsible to steward our finances and to make sure that finances are uh, planned and used with integrity. And they're also they have oversight over legal matters and involved in legal matters. So it's an oversight of the leadership team. It's financial, it's nature, it's legal in nature to kind of distill it down, even though they do more than that. So the executive committee does exist to evaluate me, for example, and all the men on the leadership team. That will occur next week. And my experience has been I'm very grateful for our polity and very grateful for the men on the executive committee who serve the Council of Elders this way, because I think it's just very, very healthy. You for the leadership team to have oversight and evaluation of what we do, I think is a very healthy thing. I've also benefited from their input over the years, and I'm grateful for each of the men that serve on the committee. And they're wonderful men. They're local pastors, just like you and I are, Ben, who are giving time to serve Sovereign Grace in this wonderful way. So members of the executive committee include Bruce Chick and Abelarda Munoz and Andy Farmer, Brian Chesmore, Dave Odom, Dave York, and I'm missing somebody or two. We just had to have a change on the executive committee because Ken Mellinger needed to resign due to health reasons. The executive committee chose Mike Pluniak to take his place, so he's on the executive committee. And actually, Mike will be presented as a candidate to fulfill Ken's term, which ends in 2026 at the Council of Elders in November. And they asked Dave York to chair the executive committee. So those are the men on the Steve Teeter. That's who I
You
forgot.
got
I
it.
forgot Steve Teeter on the executive committee. So these men, they just do such a great job, and I thank God for them.
It is sad, of course, that our friend Ken had to give up his role there because he served as the chair of the executive committee for years and did such an
Yes,
excellent job. And
he
the
did.
reality is, you know, these men are they work hard and there's sacrifice of time that's involved, time away from families. They have an executive committee retreat next week, and uh, that's normal for people to often not know exactly who's on the committee because they're not serving for recognition or the
Right.
applause of others. They're quietly serving to ensure the health of our family of churches. So thanks to all the guys who do serve on the executive committee. So next week, heading to the retreat. Where's the retreat, and what are you going to do?
Yeah, I thought it might be good to just talk about what happens at an executive committee retreat.
Yeah.
I get what they do, but how's that even work? We're actually going to have it at Covenant Fellowship Church in Glen Mills, PA, this year. We've moved it around different years. Last year last 2 or 3 years we were in Louisville, for example, and we decided to have it here for a number of different reasons. I forgot another executive committee member, Bill Patton, just
Mm.
now remembered. So Bill and Steve, sorry I didn't remember your names when I first gave the list. So what happens at an executive committee retreat? I'm just going to walk through a bit of our agenda and
Good.
give you a little bit of idea. So first of all, we'll take some time to pray. Obviously, I will give a sovereign grace update. Really, it's an overview of what's happening in sovereign grace, and I frame the update in a way that I talk about just a number of good things that God is doing, and then I also define vulnerabilities or weaknesses that we as a leadership team believe we need to address to strengthen our mission. One example of a vulnerability is and this, if any denomination faces this right now, having enough young men who
Mm.
aspire to pastoral ministry as our first generation pastors begin to transition leadership of their church to younger men. That's I think a need that most denominations have today. So
Yeah.
I will talk about ways we're trying to address that vulnerability, for example. But within my update, just to give you categories, I talk about preparing for our future. That vulnerability is under that,
Mm.
preparing for our future, stewarding our gospel expansion wisely. We've had wonderful expansion. We will continue to expand, but we've really got to make sure we steward well what we've got now. So that what we build is strong globally. Protecting our theological borders. I'll talk a little bit about that, just because every pastor is called to protect their flock from false doctrine. Talk a little bit about church planting, and we'll spend time talking about missions and evangelism because there's some wonderful things that are happening both in global missions and evangelism
Mm.
that are encouraging, but areas we still need to grow. Like I'm very encouraged by some of the work that Jim Donahue has been doing to
Yeah.
encourage us in evangelism, but I wouldn't say it's a strength for Sovereign Grace at this point,
Mm.
for example. So I'll kick around. So that's a little bit about, I've got several more categories I won't take time to go through. That's my update. And then I'm going to take some time to talk with the leadership team about some strategic initiatives. And those strategic initiatives are meant to address some of those vulnerabilities. So one example, and most likely we'll talk about this at the Council of Elders meeting, is we've been working on for probably a year and a half a global pastors college certification plan. So
Mm.
it's wonderful to see pastors colleges begin to function like in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia.
Right.
Mexico has one in Juarez right now. Those are really good, and people are going to want to call those Sovereign Grace Pastors Colleges, which is great. But we feel like it's going to be called the Sovereign Grace Pastors College. There are certain criteria that it needs to meet in terms of curriculum, in terms of student care and discipleship, for
Sure.
example, in terms of producing fruit. And if they demonstrate that, they will be certified as a Sovereign Grace Pastors College. Now, if a pastor's college chooses not to go through that certification plan, that's fine. We just wouldn't call them a Sovereign Grace Pastor's College,
I
and
got it.
and still pray for them and do whatever we can to support them. So that's an idea or an example of strategic initiatives. Then the executive committee asked me to give a report of departments and regions. So I walked through each department in Sovereign Grace and give an update there. The Department of Theology that Jeff leads, Department of Music, Sovereign Grace Music that Bob Coughlin leads are a couple of examples. And then regions, we just sort of generally summarize what we see in the regions. We don't drop down into each region and get into details at all because it's not really the role of the executive committee.
Right.
It's just more how are the regions doing overall? And that's the update I give there. And then we spend a lot of time evaluating the leadership team and me. What I do is I sort of give them a leadership team update, overall update. Then I share my evaluation of every member on the leadership team. And then they ask me to leave the room and they evaluate me.
Right.
And then bring me back in and we talk about that. So my evaluation, just so guys would understand, people would understand, includes a local elder evaluation. And then the executive committee sends my church, every leadership team member church, a local church evaluation. It's basically asking, is he being an elder in a genuine way in your church? Are you in unity with him? Do you continue to support him in this role? And then each leadership team member evaluates me as the executive director. Those are all just passed on to the executive committee. And then I do a self evaluation. So we try to be as comprehensive as possible in my evaluation, which I think is a really good thing. And again, a healthy thing. So that can just take some time to walk
Sure.
through all of that. Then we'll spend also a lot of time on reviewing and hopefully approving the fiscal year 26 budget. That's a specific role the executive committee has, is to drop into the details. They have a finance committee that does that and works with Tommy Hill, for example, and they will ask a lot of questions about it and get to a point where they will vote to hopefully approve it. Because the executive committee approves the budget, the council of elders affirms it.
Right.
So it's a unique function of the executive committee has that the council of elders has given them to do. And then we'll give some legal updates as well. We're always trying to keep the committee up on that. So that's just some of the things that we will be
Yeah.
doing next week. It's a full schedule. It's a few days. So would you please pray, if you're listening to this podcast or reading it, please pray for the executive committee as we gather next week.
Excellent. Well, I mean, again, thanks to everybody who's sacrificing time with family and regular work to head to the retreat to serve us in this important way. What's one or two specific ways that we can be praying for your time together?
Yeah, I would say pray for the nine guys on the executive committee, asking God to give them wisdom
Hmm.
for decisions they need to make. And I think pray that their input for me would strengthen the leadership and strengthen sovereign grace.
Good.
I think, and then anything that comes out in evaluations that we need to grow in, that we would have grace to grow in those things,
Hmm.
are just a few things that come to mind. Because ultimately, what that all aims at is the leadership team's desire and heart to serve our churches.
Yeah.
And that aims at strengthening our desire together to advance the gospel of Jesus Christ, which ultimately aims at the glory of God.
Yeah. Amen. Well, we'll be praying. Thanks for the update and look forward to hearing about how God is going to meet with you over the course of those days together in Glen Mills. So thank you, Mark, for the update. And thank you all for checking out the podcast. We'll see you here next week, Lord willing. Bye for now.
Thank you for watching. If you have questions or comments, Mark would love to hear from you. For more videos like this, hit subscribe on YouTube or by email at markkprater.com.